Welcome to the Heart of Racing podcast, made alongside our good mates at Ladbrokes. I'm Peter Basaldas, filling in for Neil Breen this week, and as always, joined by Will Freedman. Hello, Will.
I feel like the anchor now. Like I'm the only one left.
Well, Breeny, he must have a cashy somewhere, or a job that he's headed off to, or he's lost somewhere, still trying to come up with more than $10 million to buy the Winx filly Winx last week with Piero.
Yeah, that was well, to be fair, we had a very good Golden Slipper day. I think we tipped like 6 races. And then first day of the championships, we got put back in our box, and Breeny was a big part of that. And we were talking off air. I think I'm going to throw him under the bus for some of his disasters through that card and say I was supporting a mate, you know.
That's it. All right, let's get straight into it. And I'm pleased you want to bring this one up for the Pineapple, which is usually the shocker of the week, but it's a little bit different this week.
Yeah, it is. I thought generally the racing was very good over both meets down in Melbourne and in Sydney. I didn't really see too many horrific ones. John Allen in the first at Caulfield probably got left napping a little bit, but it wasn't a disaster as much as just a bad ride. But to all the naysayers that said, "Oh, we shouldn't be racing," you know, like it's no chance. We've had 230 mils of rain. You know, it's dangerous for the jockeys. And then the decision got delayed like all day. We started at, I think it was at 6:30. They had the jockeys ride in the race, and then they said, we're going to come back to you in half an hour because there's a stream coming across at the 1,000-metre mark. And don't worry, I was fence sitting at that point, and we were sitting in the tower going, there's no way if they've got a bloody stream coming across the track that we're going to be able to start. And then my uncle Michael had his say with Peter Moody, with them in gumboots and barefoot on the track with, you know, water up to their knees, saying, book lunch if you haven't already. You know, all the different types of saying we shouldn't do it. And look, part of me doesn't like the social media trend that heaps pressure on these track managers. Like, they're trying to do the best job they can, and we just heap pressure like they're going to make the wrong decision.
It's an interesting one, and you know, we get it all the time, all across the country. And is it part of it these days too, Will, that, and I know we were going to bring this up a little bit later on, but we may as well do it now and talk about it, is that there's so many people that have their say on social media. It's the same with across a lot of sports and probably a lot of other things that happen in life as well. And so quick to come down on these guys that do one heck of a job, and they're under so much scrutiny, the track managers as well, right across the country.
Yeah, it was our Gates fly, one of our Gates fly issue, but we'll do it now because I think it's pertinent now. But it's I think there's a core group of social media people that drive this sort of agenda. They want to be outraged by whatever decision is being made. And look, I'm not one to be light of an opinion myself, but when you're talking about things that are safety orientated and is bigger than just an error, like if you put the rail out an extra couple of meters and it plays hot on the speed, it's like, okay, well, it's no good for everybody, but it's not a safety concern. And you're putting pressure on people that are trying to get a race meet to go forward based on safety and assuming they're not going to make the right decision. They were back against the wall, those track managers on Saturday, with all the people saying it wasn't going to be safe. Like, what can you do? I was almost sure they were going to call it off just out of just taking the safety approach. But full credit to the boys, as I'd say in league. They got it right.
Yeah, it certainly did. They got it right. And think of the damage it does to the industry had they, in so many different ways, damage probably the wrong word, but if they had made that early call, say at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and said, okay, we're deferring day one of the championships to Monday, well, instantly you've got a lot less people on track, and so the club takes a hit. I'm sure that betting turnover would be a heck of a lot lower on a Monday than it would be on a Saturday as well. There's that ripple effect that just goes through. So I'm pleased, as you already alluded to, that they just waited, stayed patient, and sort of ignored a lot of that outside noise.
Yeah, I think they made a great call. Michael Wood has done a great job, and people have to remember it's not a typical autumn carnival because we haven't had a huge amount of rain in the lead up to it. So the tracks can actually cope and drain because they're not saturated like they normally are at this point. Like
Yep.
when we've had weekend after weekend of heavy tracks, you get 50 mils the day before, and the tracks just go, there's nothing, we can't drain because it's just saturated underneath. And look, Michael Wood is Navesh was very good and he's up on the Gold Coast now, but I think Michael Wood's done a tremendous job. And like you said, you can't, moving to Monday is not a better solution for the industry. The industry needs it on those big Saturdays. Monday's not even a public holiday this year on that. It wasn't on the Easter weekend. So quite literally everyone's going to be at work while we're an entertainment sport. If you're at work, then you're not attending, you're not as engaged. Anyway, they made a terrific call, and full credit to them.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Sayonara, the horse we say goodbye to. What about Breeny last week? It was all Breeny, wasn't it, with his Sayonara horse last week, ended up winning the Doncaster?
Yeah, he asked for me to back him off air before we got on. It had nothing to do with me. I was just helping out a mate. But to be fair, I'd been pretty big. I didn't think the 3-year-old form was good, but we'll get to that in the So Simple because it is so simple. But
yep.
I'm not liking Osmosis. His favourite is $3. He's probably the best horse in the race, but he's come off the back of rearing up at the start, then going back to the trials, coming back again. I don't like the setup of it. I don't like seeing horses go from disasters into champions. I usually like to think as a trainer that you've sort of got to have a bridging run where you perform well and then you go to the next stage. And then you're able to win. I would be thinking Osmosis will win a race up in the Brisbane Carnival, maybe the Doomben 10,000, something in that vein. But I think you're going to find there's a couple of horses that are just having a better preparation, and he's got to overcome a bit. And at that level, you can't have a lot go wrong.
All right. Well, we'll get to that race a little bit later on. Now, you alluded to this, the So Simple, the horse we should have backed.
Yeah. Celestial Legend. I get it. We sayonara'd it. We got it wrong. It's a bit like the lay of the day. I swear the lay of the day always gets up. So we'd been talking about it for 2 weeks in advance. But he was very good. And to be fair, we doubted the Randwick Guineas form, and Celestial Legend won, and I think Militarized ran second. Probably unlucky to run second. So look, I'm not sure we've got the best weight for age horses, or we didn't have the best weight for age horses in that Doncaster, because I would have liked to seen horses that we're going to allude to later in the Queen Elizabeth, like Mr. Brightside, like Pride of Jenny. I actually think Melbourne have a very good representation of our best miler, mile and a quarter horses.
All right, yeah, as you said, we'll get onto that very soon when we have a look at day 2 of the championships with the Queen Elizabeth. Now, Gates Fly, we've already burned one of our topics here and talking about the scrutiny of track managers, but one of the big talking points, not just in racing, it's transcended racing this week, coming from the English sales, the value of Winx. Is there a ceiling? Will we see this $10 million purchase be seen as, I know this is going to sound very stupid, Will, but seen as a bargain in the future?
I don't think so, particularly not for mares. But it's a real controversial topic because, like, I'll paint the picture for you going into it, because there was a lot of talk going through the wholesale about the Winx filly. So I didn't even look at it, to be fair. So I looked at it in the ring like everybody else. Firstly, to vet the horse, you had to go and ask permission to vet it. So Coolmore, you'd go up to the Coolmore office and say, I want to vet the Winx filly. So they knew who was going to bid on it. They weren't just throwing out the vet for just namesake, for people to just say like, oh, yeah, I vetted Winx filly. I was the underbidder. So, look, the problem with fillies is the very best fillies. So you talk about in recent time, you saw Forbidden Love sell for 4.1 million. That's the one that I remember most. She won 3 Group 1s. So, like, that's a champion filly. And you've got Winx. I don't know what Winx would have been worth at the end of her racing career, but okay, let's say it was 10 million. We're sort of saying this filly has to win 4 or 5 Group 1s to get any higher than what she's been bought as a yearling. Like, you can't spend much more, because if you think about it, and I know you don't apply logic to these sorts of things, but if she had 5 foals and you sold them all for, sale topping lots, which would be 2 million, say you average $2 million, that's for 5 years. That's your $10 million. You're only even then. So it's really a collector's item. It's people with lots of money throwing their weight around.
I think there's another term that we probably shouldn't use, but something measuring. I think it can be called.
Well, to be fair, I don't. John Stewart definitely. Debbie Capitas maybe not so much. So, but look, in the end, just so people know, Debbie Capitas, people think she bought back the horse and it was a non-event. She had 2 other partners that got bought out. So I don't know how that eventuated. I wouldn't have thought Debbie Capitas would have wanted it to go to public auction. I think the other 2 partners were probably like, well, we want to know the true value of her before selling out our shares. So the John Stewart then sort of started. He bought another 6 horses that sale. He's never been in Australia before. He got on the Kangaroo Tour. Coolmore got into him and, gave him a good time, which is great. Like they do a very good job of hospitality. And then he was pitching on social media for his neck to who to train these horses. And gosh, have you ever seen a group of trainers get more active on social media? Like, we're not the most forward industry of all time on social media, but as soon as there were a couple of $1 million lots open to be trained, everyone was reinvigorating their social media accounts. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Is he good for the industry in our part of the world to see him out here spending some cash?
I think so. I think it just legitimizes Australia. Like, I've been fortunate to travel the world, and a lot of the perception of Australia is that we're a second-tier racing jurisdiction. And I think the fact that these big players are now coming to Australia and playing on the big stage, that's legitimizing it. Like, I was only picking up the paper the other day, and you look at the championships. It's on the back page. There's a banner on the front page. It's the first page you turn into the double spread on the first page. It's like racing is a mainstream sport in Australia, and it's not in other parts of the world. It's a second, third tier sport. So I think John Stewart came out here and was like, oh, wow, this is what racing should be like in America. Like, this is a commercial operation. So I think he is good, but I think what he does with his word of mouth to other parts of the world is going to bring more investment into Australia.
PVL had him under his arm in the last week or so as well.
I'd say PVL's encouraging him, not discouraging him. He sees the value. So Peter knows where a buck is, and he'll find it.
And mate, that's a good thing too. I mean, you talk about where racing is in the press, and it's like that in all parts of the country. But I think it's highlighted even more in Sydney, and you can thank Peter V'landys for that, because he wines and dines the right people and makes sure that the sport gets the right coverage in areas where in the past you might have only seen what on in some services. Will, you'll probably agree with this, is that maybe the slipper would get a run, 1 or 2 other features, Melbourne Cup obviously, and that'd be just about it. But now, the championships are featuring on your 6 o'clock news on not just a Saturday night wrapping up the races, but during the week as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been a heap of good things Peter does, and a lot of the things that Peter does do is behind the scenes. Like, it's not always on the front page what Peter is doing to try and keep attention in racing, and that, for that matter, for rugby league as well. Like, even just small things. He has he has a rugby league game at Mudgee and then ties it in with the Mudgee Cup, like that sort of linking to getting more of a community around the two sports. And you've got to remember from a political point of view, the CEO of Racing New South Wales is a powerful man.
Yep.
The CEO of Racing New South Wales and the chairman of Rugby League has serious pull. That's probably the reason that in COVID, Rugby League and racing did so well, because he was able to leverage both off one another and deal with the government themselves. So people underplay that and think that, it's time for change, it's time for this, it's time for that. But you just don't know what you've got until you don't have it anymore. And I think that's the main thing about Peter, is you've got to recognise that there are things you don't know that are happening, that he's fighting battles that get poured cold water on these fires before they even make it to the media. So I'm a big fan, but anyway, you're right. He wouldn't have missed Jon Stewart. I reckon he's loving it.
No, that's for sure. You didn't happen to miss Jon Stewart, did you?
I had a go, but I didn't do it publicly.
Good stuff. All right. Now, the Ladbrokes Racing Club were active at the English-Australian Easter Yearlings Sale, which was no doubt highlighted by the record-breaking Piero Winx filly, which sold, as we discussed, for $10 million. The team were very pleased to secure 7 new additions to the LRC, spending $2.6 million in what was a very competitive market. You can follow the progress of their 7 yearlings through the Ladbrokes Racing Club platform, including the early education process, plus the chance to name them when they are closer to a first start. Now, speaking of Ladbrokes, the main man at Ladbrokes is Tom Hackett, and he joins us now for a weekend update from Ladbrokes. Take it away, Tom.
Tom Hackett here with the Ladbrokes odds update. Another monster weekend of racing. The Championships Day 2, headlined by a really interesting edition of the Queen Elizabeth Stakes. Via Sistina, she was an outstanding winner of the Randwick Stakes first up. She's going to start this race as a dominant favourite. Currently $2.30 in the Ladbrokes market. But I don't think she's got a stranglehold on this race. I think it's a more competitive affair than that market suggests. And a horse I think could upset this clear favourite here is Cascadian, the veteran. He was outstanding in the Australian Cup. He's won back-to-back Australian Cups now. Pride of Jenny will roll along. That suits Cascadian, who is capable of running a strong 2,000 metres. So I think he's a horse that can upset the favourite in the Queen Elizabeth Stakes. Another really interesting race is the Sydney Cup. It's a very competitive affair. I think Circle of Fire, the favourite, is a little bit vulnerable here as well. I think the horse to beat here is actually Ash Run, currently $5 in the Ladbrokes market. Ran a really good fourth behind Without a Fight in the Melbourne Cup last year. Runs a strong 3,200 metres and is heading in the right direction this preparation. Won the Pakenham Cup in good style. Was very good last start in the Tancred Stakes. I think it's ready to peak over 3,200 metres in the Sydney Cup. A race where I'm not taking on the favourite, though, is the Queen of the Turf Stakes. I think the favourite, Zoo Gotcha, is the best bet of the day. Currently $3.30 with Ladbrokes. I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up starting shorter than that. I think she is the class mare in this field. She's been 2 from 2 this preparation. A really good first up win in the Millie Fox. Backed that up with a really tough, a brave win in the Coolmore Classic. I think back to weight for age suits. She's going to be very tough to beat. She's my best bet of the day. Back to you, boys.
Thank you, Tom. This is the Heart of Racing, made alongside our mates at Ladbrokes. Next, we give you the big bets for this weekend's racing. Take on the fun with Ladbrokes. Download the Ladbrokes app today for all of your favourite racing features like Black Book, Yard Comments and more. You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Welcome back. This is the Heart of Racing, made alongside our mates at Ladbrokes. Peter Basoldis with you this week, filling in for Neil Breen with, of course, Will Freedman here as well. Day 2 of the championships, Will. Let's get straight into it and start off by having a look at the Queen Elizabeth. Which way are you leaning here?
It's a good race. I mean, all of our races are from Randwick this week. Melbourne's down at Bendigo. The Queensland Carnival hasn't really kicked into gear. South Australia starts kicking off soon. I think they're Oaks, and WA's got the Derby. But this, in my opinion, is the best race of the card. Is this Queen Elizabeth? It's probably dominated by the first 4 hopes, which is Via Sistina, who was the winner of the Randvet last start. apologies if I got that wrong. Tancred and the Randvet I always mix up. Anyway,
Yep.
Pride of Jenny down in Melbourne beat Mr. Brightside, who's fourth favourite, and I think Cascadian was brilliant, in his last start in the Australia Cup. So this is a proper race. So Via16 is a funny one. There's going to be more pressure this time. Last start, she sort of got it all her own way. It was sort of a sit and sprint. You're certainly not going to get that from Pride of Jenny. She's going to put a lot of pace into this race, but I sort of lean towards how it builds for Cascadian. I did speak to James Cummings after it won the Australia Cup, and he said he actually didn't run it in the Queen Elizabeth the year before because they thought he might have beaten Animo. He was going that well.
Wow.
So I'm leaning on this occasion to Cascadian.
Just before we leave that race, for Pride of Jenny fans, obviously you'll get a very good sight. Pride of Jenny will be way out in front for most of the race. The Sydney way of going will prove any difficulty there, any challenges. And are you a fan of the way they set up Pride of Jenny to go out there? Because a lot of whether you're not so much a racing enthusiast, but if you're watching the big races. A lot of people say, yeah, I want to look at Pride of Jenny way that she'll just be way out there, just on her own, out in front.
Yeah, I call her a horse killer because if you run second to her and she's broken your heart, I can imagine for a horse, they've tried their guts out and they're like, how does this horse just keep going? She's an incredible athlete. Sydney way to Melbourne way is an interesting one. Some cope with it, others don't. Most horses, particularly at Randwick, don't mind it because they sort of size up at the 500, balance up, and then go up the rise, and it's not too bad. It's a bit like horses going from the Sydney way to Flemington, rather. They sort of get it. It's because it's a forgiving sort of track. If you take horses, say, from Sydney to Caulfield, sometimes they really don't get around it that well. So I'm not so concerned about Pride of Jenny. I think it sets up marvellously for her to sort of have her own way out in front. But I still think Cascadian's the one that has done it everywhere over and over again. He's done nothing wrong. He ran down Pride of Jenny last time. It's just, in my opinion, whether Via Sistina is just too good. Like, is she that good? Like, she could be, and then they're all running for second.
All right. Yeah, interesting race, the Queen Elizabeth. Is it all about orchestral when we get to the Australasian Oaks?
I'm a big orchestral fan. I loved I loved the theatre of Tutor Levita and orchestral because I think James is going to know what's coming because there's no doubt in my mind that Nash is going to try the same tactics and try and go from about the 800-metre mark and pinch it again. He only just got beat doing it last time. It'll be interesting to see whether orchestral sort of makes sure in running that she's close enough to Tutor Levita that she can just sort of, or James can just keep it within check because one thing Nash is not short of is balls, and he will do it. He will do something that you think stupid to try and win a race. He doesn't care if he finishes last. He's only trying to win. So Zardozi's obviously the query. I thought she would have been a Monty in the Derby last week. But yeah, it's hard to go past orchestral. I think she deserves to be $1.60.
The Sydney Cup is wide open. Many chances here. What have we got? A $5 the field, Circle of Fire at $5. So where are you looking at here?
This is a real tough race. This is the toughest race on the meet to sort of get your head around. We don't have a lot of 2-mile racing, so it should really be a good lead-up race for the Melbourne Cup. But we just don't have the quality of stock in the autumn that we do get in the spring when the internationals come over. They've got a good wrap on this Circle of Fire. Carlapor's the one that you just keep forgetting about. And Military Mission, I was devastated when it drew barrier 17. I thought it was a really good chance. And Serpentine has lost no admirers from its on-speed performance. So, I mean, would it shock you if Lloyd Williams won another one with Serpentine? Probably not. That's probably the way I go.
All right. Yeah, good one for the exotics, the Sydney Cup. You'll get some value no matter which way they land.
Breeny has a Breeny doesn't like backing to win. He always loves backing in place. So if I was going to do that, I'd go Serpentine to place.
Okay, Serpentine the place. There you go. That's the Breeny bet of the week.
Yeah, that's right. If that doesn't come off, it's his fault.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The Percy Sykes is another interesting one.
Yeah, it is. I think the interesting part of this is that you're getting 230 for Lady of Camelot. Like, this horse is just, it's 5 lengths better than these horses. It won't be as good as it was in the Golden Slipper. I guarantee you that. It won't be as good as it was because that was its grand final. But this could be its first up run for 3 months off, and it'd still beat this field. So I think $2.30 is honestly stealing. I don't know why they're offering it. Maybe they know something I don't. Maybe they had a high temperature a week. But it could be under the weather and still beat this lot. So I think $2.30, just whatever you can afford to lose, you just put it on Lady of Camelot, responsibly, obviously.
Yes, exactly. We'll give all the messages very soon. But yeah, so there you go, Lady of Camelot in the Percy Sykes. Now, Group 2 race, the Arrowfield Sprint. This is what we were alluding to earlier with Osmosis, the $3 favourite.
Yeah, I just can't get him. I can't get around $3 for Osmosis. It's actually come in, so they're obviously saying it's going to bounce back. I know it was a non-event last time and it trialled very well, but I can't have it personally. I don't know. I think Schwartz is probably, they should be closer in the market. I think if they were both around $4, I could handle that. But I think Learning to Fly is just honestly the forgotten horse. It ran flat second up. That's fine. It'd been 12 months off the scene. Like, it ran huge first up. Second up, it wasn't great. They've kept it at 1,200 metres for the Arrowfield Sprint. It's a serious animal, Learning to Fly. Like, it is a very, very, very good filly. And I think it could turn it around. So that's I've got the clear obvious is when we get to the unload. But if I was going to have a good bet on something at each way odds, I'd be going Learning to Fly. All
right, you get around that $9 mark at the moment as well there for Learning to Fly in the Arrowfield Sprint. Now, the stable mail, Ladbrokes Communities ever wanted to connect, banter and share tips with a group of diehard racing punters? Well, it's time to check out Communities, available in the Ladbrokes app, and we don't have to wait too long here, Will.
No, for the early listeners this time, like we're gonna see whether what they say the wheat mixes with the chaff, but it's I think Shalonte is running at Wyong today in race 7. You get about $7.50, I think, around that mark. It might go in after a couple of us play, but go straight out. It's the best horse in that race, in my opinion. I think it's pretty close to going as well as it can. And look, if I'll make we called the segment the Owen, Peter, because I was Owen 4 or something for it, and then we got Electrica up a few weeks ago. But I'll say this: if it doesn't run in the top 2, we'll start the Owen again, and we'll start back from 0 and 1. So I'm pretty confident we're going to be all right.
That's confident. All right. So, gee whiz, the pressure's going to be on Matt and Jordan to get this podcast up very quickly today. That's for sure. But you're going to give us, though, the horses that we're backing this weekend. I think I already know where, in time to unload, which horse you're going to mention first up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Lady of Camelot is the clear top pick of the meet. I think 230 is really generous. I think once you get to starting time, she'll be odds on. So I think she should be starting around $1.75. Based on ratings, I think of that. But I don't think you should just leave it there. I think we should all put our balls on the line and take Orchestral into it, multi them up. I think you get about, at the moment, if you do it, you get about $3.60, $3.70. And I reckon they'll both shorten. I think get on early. I don't think the weather's going to be too bad from here on in, and I just think both of them are pretty good things. So let's cheer on the ladies and the girls.
Absolutely. All right. So plenty to go on ahead of day 2 of the championships there. Will, that's been fun. Thanks for having me along. I know Breen will be back in the chair next week, but hopefully we get to do it all again sometime soon. Have a good week and good luck this afternoon.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And good luck, punters.
Thanks, everyone. We'll be back next week for the Heart of Racing podcast with Will Freedman and Neil Breen.